So our topic tonight is prescription for dark skies, and we are pleased to have Bob King do this talk for us. And Bob is a familiar name and voice, if not perhaps so much a face to most of us in Duluth, I think. He's had a regular spot on let's see, it's called The North now, 103.3 FM in the morning, talking about astronomical issues. And he's been in love with the night sky and astronomy since his time growing up in Illinois. He shares this passion with people in our community in a number of ways. He writes a blog, Astro Bob, and shares information about events going on during the year that all of us have the opportunity to see. He has a website, teaches community education, astronomy classes, and appears in Backyard Astronomy, which is the name of that program on the morning show on KUMD. Bob also has a couple of books out. I've got one on the table right here.
I lost the video. I had to.
Bandwidth is low.
Night Sky with the Naked Eye, and the wonders of the night sky that you must see before you die, describes the joys of sky watching. So with that, I'll introduce Bob, and I'll ask again for everyone on the call to please make sure that you're muted during the presentation so we don't pick up any background noise.
Thank you very much, Julie. I appreciate that. And that's a very kind introduction. It's great to be here in a warm place with everybody this evening. And I know I'll be going out after the presentation tonight to look at an asteroid that's zipping through the skies right here. But I don't expect you guys to, because you need a telescope and it's cold outside too. And I won't be out long. But it's a great opportunity for me to be able to speak with you about something that's really dear to my heart, which is the night sky, and also how to preserve the night sky, things that you can do for better lighting, because that's what the main issue is. When you look up, so much of the light actually does go up and it's wasted. So we're going to talk about some of the problems with the current lighting that we have and how we got there, and also forms of good lighting that you can find and suggest to your neighbors, something you could use yourself, or something that you can use to talk to a developer, or perhaps even go to your city councilor and talk about to improve lighting in your community. So with that, I should say that my internet is a little on the slow side where I live. So if I start to sound a little crazy on this end of the line, just be patient and things will snap together and it should make sense. Feel free to ask questions. If something occurs to you during the presentation, go ahead and put it in the chat. And then I would ask Julia to just check the chat. And if that's okay, if you want to just read me, just interrupt and read me that question, that would be wonderful. All right. So with that, I'm going to take us to our little slideshow for tonight. And it's about how we can preserve the night skies. It's a resource. It's been with humanity for our entire evolution, tens of thousands, many hundreds of thousands of years, and yet only recently has it become endangered, almost like an endangered species. You have to travel farther and farther away from cities in order to appreciate and make that connection with the night. And to me, that connection is really, really important, because it provides us a perspective, a chance for contemplation, a sense of being connected to nature on a very grand scale, very similar to the forest in a sense, but yet the scale is so grand when you're looking up at the Milky Way from a dark sky place. I mean, it is very fulfilling and inspiring. We all know the feeling, right? We've been out in this at one time or another, whether it's camping or traveling. This picture, by the way, was just taken sort of from a light polluted location. It was up on the Island Lake area, but a relatively dark sky at that spot. Let's take a look at how lighting has changed, the growth of lighting. Back in this is, by the way, these are actual satellite photos from these three maps. But in the late 50s, this is more of a simulation because we didn't have full satellite views of the United States at that time. But in the 50s, this is a photograph from orbit of what our country looked like light-wise. So you can see the major urban centers here. They're highlighted in orange and yellow. Over here, we have Chicago, there's Minneapolis, and my gosh, if you can follow my pointer right up there, there's Duluth and Thunder Bay. But you can see that over the decades, the lighting has increased drastically until today. The eastern half of the country is basically, there's really no truly dark sky from the eastern half. Not that you can't see the Milky Way from some of those places, but it is contaminated. Fortunately for us in Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, we have some areas we can still go to that are primevally dark, you might call them, and that would be Voyageurs National Park, which recently received a special dark sky award and certification. But lighting has drastically increased. It's gone in step also with the population. As more people are around, more lighting is needed. Here's a more recent satellite image of the United States. Once again, you can see the major urban centers. Here's Minneapolis and Duluth. Notice that we are sort of near the fringe of a vast area of darkness. So in Duluth itself, there's quite a bit of light pollution, as we'll learn. But if you go north of Duluth and keep going, you're going to find extremely dark skies. Also, in the areas out in the western part of the country, deserts, mountain ranges, and so forth, there's a lot of dark sky in that part of the world as well. Here's a map, and I encourage you to go to this website. It's called lightpollutionmap.info. You can just type in light pollution map and it'll pretty much come right up. You can zoom into this map, go to whatever city or place to check it out to see how bright it is there. And the bluer and green areas and gray, blue, green, gray indicate very dark skies. And I won't go into detail here, but you get the idea, right? In Virginia, Hibbing, Chisholm, Duluth, the area, these are urban centers, and so they light up yellow and red. The map includes roads, so you can zoom in. And if you want to find a dark place, no matter where you live or where you might be vacationing, you can call up this map and find the darkest location near where you're going to be and go there, say for an event or just to see a beautiful dark sky. I want to show you something scary next. I don't like to scare people, but I went into that map and checked the satellite data. And there's data from 2012 all the way to 2021. And I took the two maps taken by that satellite of our region and put them together to see what sort of changes happened in the past 10 years or so. And if you look at this map, it is pretty dramatic. Between 2012 and 2021, there's Duluth Superior. You can see the expansion of lighting as additional streets and neighborhoods and developments are illuminated. You can also see changes up here on the Iron Range. And I've noticed these changes myself when I go out and I look at the night sky. When I look to the northeast, from just north of Duluth, I can see more of a glow on the horizon from the Iron Range, even this far south compared to 10 years ago. And this map verifies that. So what is the cause? I mean, I mentioned that people, and the expansion of cities and so on is part of the reason why there's been an increase in lighting. But the main problem with lighting is not so much that there are more lights, it's more that the lights that we used are poorly shielded and they're too bright sometimes for what their purpose should be. But the main issue, and you can see it here in all of this photos that I put together as a collage, unshielded lighting where there's no housing around the light to contain it. And so it doesn't just spill out onto the ground. but indeed it spreads off to the sides and it also goes straight up. That light, the light that is not on the ground, which is really basically where you need light, that light is wasted light and it goes up into the sky. It's estimated that about 35% of all outdoor lighting is pure waste. And some of it, as I said, goes into the sky, but there's also a portion of it, and easy to visualize here. Some of it goes right into your eyes and is glare. And if you've ever been driving down a road that has unshielded lights, you know how difficult it is, especially as you get older, because it just makes it nearly impossible to drive because of the glare. Glare is never good, nor is light that spills outward to illuminate buildings that don't need the light, and also the sky, which definitely does not need the light. I want to show you a few examples now of lighting. You probably have seen similar things in your neighborhood. I just took a walk a while back one night, had my camera and tripod. I felt a little weird, you know, people thinking, what are you taking pictures of at night? But because I did it for a living, I wasn't too uncomfortable. These are very common. They're called wall packs, and you probably have seen these. They are bright lights that are put onto a building that shine directly outward. You pull into this parking lot here, yes, you will see some light in the parking lot, but you will also be blinded by the wall pack lights. That light is an inelegant and inexpensive solution to lighting a lot, which could be lit instead by using light standards pointing downward. So these are unfortunately quite common. There's also a lot of this. Thankfully, there's less of this than there used to be. However, ornamental lighting is still quite popular. And in ornamental lighting, the bulb is often not housed. It's not shielded. And so poorly shielded street lighting, yes, indeed, it does illuminate the street, but it also lights up the air and again goes into the sky. Here's some of what we often see in Duluth, in developments, new developments, apartments, and so on. And also if you travel across the country and you go into a small community, many small communities in the past 20 years have erected these attractive looking ornamental lighting standards. Unfortunately, they are not shielded and they don't burn just a little candle flame or a gas flame. Of course, they're equipped with the latest LED lighting, which is very intense and again, provides glare, spreads light across places you don't need it and goes up in the sky. This is Duluth downtown back in 2017. And for many years, beginning in the 1980s, Duluth used these kinds of street lights, and portions of Duluth up on First Street still do. But later on in the presentation, I will show you, I'll bring you some good news, tell you that, of course, these lights have been replaced and to great effect. So there are solutions. And that's the interesting thing about light pollution. It's not a nuclear physics. It's basically a simple thing of the right amount of lighting in a shielded housing. So we have the solution. It's just employing that solution whenever and wherever we can. Another example of ornamental lighting, not to pick on anybody, this is, some of you may recognize the area, but this is Bluestone apartments up on Woodland Avenue, and people complained about these lights. And thankfully, the people that manage these apartments did turn the light, the intensity down. And that makes a difference too. The people who did complain, those voices were heard. And your voice can make a difference if you make that call or have that meeting. We'll talk about ways you can be effective at the end, near the end of the presentation. Well, here's a classic. These just seem to be getting brighter and brighter. And granted, these lights are underneath a housing, but still they are outward and illuminating all kinds of things that they have no business lighting. This is a type of lighting that's especially galling, although I would think many people find it very attractive, is to light the outsides of buildings. And while it does look pretty, you're also shining light really directly into the sky. And all the light that you put into the sky is taking away from those opportunities for you to go out and for you and your family to show your children the night sky, just from your front yard, for instance, rather than having to get into a car and drive 50 miles to find something.
Not on screen.
I know that we all have to deal with these situations in your neighborhood. Sometimes the toughest situations are yard lighting, where people leave their yard lights on all night long. And what that does, of course, is we have light trespass. It might shine right on your house. It might shine in your window. You have to keep the shade drawn. It's also wasteful too, because that light burns all night long on the porch. Frequently, at least in my neighborhood, I'm not sure about yours, but the majority of people who have lights leave their lights on. And I've gone and talked with a few of them and have had some success. And we'll talk about that as well. Here's one where I've had no success at all. This is my next door neighbor, and he has a mercury vapor light on a pole. Sometimes you'll still see these in the countryside. And I tried to explain to him about, he'd be able to see the stars, and he would provide extra habitat for fireflies and that sort of thing. And he and I are close, and he's a great person to talk to, but he just kind of gave me a flat out, no, I like to see my lawn. Anytime he wants to look, he likes to see his lawn lit at night. Don't lose hope. The important thing is speaking to people and letting them know what your concerns are. So what's the result of all of these lights, whether it's poorly designed, poorly shielded house lighting, city lights, and all the rest of it? Well, of course, it's lighting up the sky, and it produces a peculiar sort of orangey bluish glow these days, because we now have a mix of orange lighting from sodium lights. Those are the older generation lights from the late 70s and 80s, with the newer LED lights. This is Eagle Lake, not too far from Duluth. And when you look in the direction of Duluth, of course, it's just suffused with wasted light. Just look at that light and think how much coal had to be burned to keep that light glaring in the sky every single night of the year. So you've seen some bad lighting, right? And I'm sure you're saying, man, Bob, I've seen plenty of bad lighting. What actually works? Well, again, it's a simple thing. Good lighting will shield the light source from view, right? Let me show you some bad lighting here with my little headline. Let's see. Well, it doesn't want to work, but you get the point, right? So here's a before situation. We have your unshielded light, and on the right, put a box around it, and the light is directed down towards the ground. An interesting thing about shielded lighting is that at night, it also allows your eyes to dark adapt. This is what you do when you go out on any night. Let's say there are no lights, you want to look at the stars. You look up, at first you might see 2, 3, 4 stars, but allow yourself 10 minutes and your eyes dark adapt. So you can see your driveway, see the yard, look up and see many stars. If you don't have a light shining in your face and you approach a building, dark adaptation, plus the light shining on the ground where you need it, so you can be sure you don't stumble, right, or slip on the ice. That will allow you to see everything you need to see. We're going to talk about different types of fixtures. So you saw the unshielded fixture. Here's one called the semi-cutoff. Sounds like a ski trail, where the light is partially exposed. Not so good, right? We still have light glaring all around the sides coming out. Here's a full cutoff light. That means that the bulb, the LED, is housed within the light, so nothing is sticking out the bottom. This is much better, and fortunately, we live in a city, in Duluth, hopefully your city too, if you're not from the area. We live in a place where all the new lights that go up on freeways and city streets, they are all full cutoff. What the city really needs to do is to take the next step and put a shield around that. And in a few places, they have. So let's look at the full range. We have very bad on the far left. That's just a ball of light, right? And very bad would be the old orange street lights on First Street and what used to be on downtown Superior Street. That's been changed in the past couple of years. Here we have a little bit of shielding on top, right? prevents some of the light from going up. And then a nice cutoff, which are the majority of streetlights in Duluth, for instance. But the full cutoff is really the way to go. And fortunately, I can tell you that we do have some very nice areas of full cutoff lighting. Not many, but we need more. For instance, on the Lake Walk, this was taken a couple of years ago, pardon me, you can see that the ground, the path right down here is lit up by lights that are fully contained within their housing. So no light is shining off to the sides. These really work. Look at how simple the design is. These prevent light from shining out and up. And so they really, really work. And these people seem happy, don't they? They can find their way just fine. Do you see a really bad example of lighting in this same photograph? Yes, of course you do. And it's off to the right on the hospital building there. That is completely unshielded lighting, just shining into the night sky, making a significant fraction of light, brightening and turning the sky over the downtown area from dark to gray. I love these lights. We had this project in Duluth, for those that aren't familiar with this, a few years back, where all these trees came down on 4th Street to make way. They'd widen the road and all of this, and they put in new lighting standards, and they put in fully shielded street lighting. Check this out. Look inside. There's the bulb. There's the housing. They also used this in a recent improvements in the Upper Woodland Avenue area. Very effective lights, provide everything you need, and yet they don't glare when you're driving, and they also don't shine where they don't need to shine. There's also wall pack lights. Remember the ones that just shine right at you? There's wall pack lights that instead shine down, and they spread the light out, say, within a parking lot. And combined with your little bit of night vision that you naturally have because you've been driving at night, provide enough light for you to walk your way up to the door and get inside the building, whether that be a church or a shopping center or an apartment building. And then we come to home and yard lighting. You can buy a shielded fixture for your home. No surprise. If you walk into, say, a Menards or a Home Depot and you look at the lighting displays, it is just overwhelming glare lights, lights that are not shielded. But there are specific ones that are housed so they're shielded. You can also buy a motion sensor light. Doesn't matter what the light looks like, you can shine straight out into the night, but if it has a motion sensor on it, it's only being used when something is moving near it. And that's really, honestly, the only time you need to use a light around your house, isn't it? If something's out there moving where you might be suspicious. Otherwise, keep your light off. I'll show you in a minute, but it turns out that one of the greatest fears for homeowners is burglary. And burglary, you might think, is common at night, but that is statistically not true. Burglaries mostly happen, and you probably know this, you can guess, they happen when you're not at home. And that is between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. primary time. But many people still keep their lights on all the time because it's almost like a security blanket in a sense. Here's some examples of fixtures that you can pick up at Menards or Home Depot, or wherever you would shop for lighting. And notice that each one is shielded. Also, some lights will actually say on them that they are dark sky certified. I'm looking here, I don't think I see anything here about that. But if it says dark sky certified, go for it. That's another good choice. And this is my summation of good home lighting. Here you have a light on, and it's directed on the steps or out towards your driveway, whichever. And it's not pointed at your neighbor. And it's turned off when it's not needed. I sincerely believe that each one of us can make a tiny difference here right at our own home. And we start always with ourselves. And that is a great way to start, just by being more cognizant of what you're doing around your house. Are you leaving the light on? Another thing and it may sound trivial, is to close your curtains when you're indoors at night, because sometimes the ceiling lights will also shine right out into the snow and reflect and add light to the night sky. I used to be able to take a picture down the road to check to see if there were northern lights visible. It faces north. The neighbor at the end of the road, however, they have no drapes, no curtains, and they always have their lights on in the house. And so I can't do that anymore because it's actually become a source of light pollution. I touched on this just a moment ago. Again, I'm spending a little extra time just on the homeowner aspect because it's one area in which we can certainly do something. I've had this experience because I've talked with neighbors, and generally people feel safe when their lights are on. However, as you can see here, they are not, I should say that the home burglaries don't really happen at night. When you're in your home at night, the chance of your home being robbed or something happening like that is very small. And you can just turn on a light immediately if needed, or use a motion sensor light. The reason why a lot of home lighting is actually very insecure and unsafe is demonstrated on the right, because the human eye cannot see past glare and penetrate darkness. You see that on the right. The glare is what we see, and it ruins our night vision. And so that blackness on the right is so dense, we can't see what's there or who's there. But if you block the light with your hand, you can see, aha, there is someone there. And that's because you've blocked it. Well, putting a shielded fixture around it makes your home actually more secure. There's talk about, well, isn't more lighting just better overall? You know, the more lights just means more safety for everybody. That is not necessarily true either. If you've ever driven down a road with a lot of lights along the road, especially if they're not properly shielded, and most of them are not, the extra glare from those lights actually makes driving harder. And I find it easier to drive with my headlights just on a dark road, or an occasional light rather than all of those lights. They did a project in Chicago trying to explore this. They lit an alley. It was back in 1998. And then they tried to find out, they did a survey to see if crime decreased with extra lighting or increased. And here you have the pre and the post. And you can see that in violent offenses, crime actually went up. Property offenses, up. In every single category, crime actually increased because of extra lighting. Extra lighting benefits someone who has criminal intentions too, because it allows them to see what their target is. And if there's glare, it allows you not to see them. So we talked a little bit about bad lighting, right? And we've looked at a few types of good lighting. Again, it's super simple, really. It's just a matter of shielding. There's also the issue of color. LED lighting comes in a variety of different hues. You've seen it with Christmas lighting, right? There's blues and reds and pink, all kinds of different colors. Well, all colors are not equal when it comes to LED lighting. And I'm talking primarily about LED because these days, that's what we're buying. And that's the most efficient form of lighting. I checked it out. And it turns out that an LED bulb, which lasts about 6 times or so longer than an incandescent, it only costs about $10 a year to run in your house, whereas an incandescent bulb or series of incandescents will cost you about 6 times that amount. So it's really a great, efficient form of lighting. Unfortunately, blue LED lights, and in many cities, the very first LED lights that were installed on highways, freeways, and so on, they were blue. That was their color. And blue is determined, they give it a temperature reading too. So they were 5,000 Kelvin or 5,000 K. It looks whitish blue to your eye. This was also true in Duluth. And this blue lighting is far worse than yellow or orange because blue light is scattered by the atmosphere much more efficiently. It's the reason the sky is blue, because the air scatters the blue light coming from the sunlight and spreads it across the whole sky. Well, those early lamps, the blue ones, scattered far more light and polluted the sky above many cities in the country, and still do. Thankfully, in Duluth, in part because of work done by our Starry Skies North light pollution group, which I'll introduce you to them in a moment. Thanks to that group and working with Minnesota Power and then changing lighting standards, new lights that are erected, at least in Duluth, are, instead of 5,000 K, they're down here around the 3,000 K mark. So they're yellower, and that yellow light is scattered less, which means it does help a little bit to darken the sky. Yikes, there's a lot of blue there and all of that light. It can look really beautiful, doesn't it? Light is, we're such strange creatures. I always think about when you come down I-35, you're going down the bridge and you look out and you see all of the lights down in West Duluth and you think, wow, is that beautiful? Well, I used to think it was beautiful too many, many years ago, but now I look at it and think, oh my gosh, it's such a waste of energy. And all of that light is going up into the sky. The thing for us to understand, and maybe I don't have to convince you, but something that you can talk to your neighbors about, is the fact that to connect that light to the other thing we love, okay, we think it's pretty down here, but it has effects like so many other human things that we do. It has effects on the natural environment. I got some bad news for you. Let me take this sip of water first. Blue light is also bad for you physically. You may have heard that when you use your cell phone at night, which emits a lot of blue light, your cell phone or a computer working late into the night will suppress the production of melatonin, which is something that your body needs to sleep well. So if you are in an environment where there's a lot of blue LEDs, whether that's your cell phone, or if you live in a place where the lighting is bluish LED, that 5,000 K, that directly affects your ability to produce melatonin, which can ruin your sleep or affect your sleep and potentially affect other aspects of your life health-wise. So it has a true physical effect too. It's not just aesthetic. It's not just glare for safety reasons, but there's a biological issue here too going on. So if we were to like invent a simple 4-step process to take a bad light and make it better, we would start with our bad light here on the left. The first thing you'd want to do is shield it. Next, you want to make sure the temperature of that light, LED lights, older lights, incandescents, which nobody buys anymore, really. Those older lights were used wattages. We had a sense of how bright it was by how many watts, 100 watts, 50 watts. LEDs use something called lumens and color temperature. So just remember that the lower the color temperature, the warmer the light. And then the intensity. How much light do you really need to see the sidewalk? Do you need a prison-like spotlight shining down on your sidewalk to see? Well, the answer is no, because we have eyes, and our eyes are pretty good at adapting. We need enough light to see our way well. And then finally, timing. You can get, or you can insist, for instance, to a developer and say, you know, I really like your project, the lighting is great, but can we work on timers? Can those lights be shut off? Because LED lights not only are great on the budget, but they're also incredibly flexible. You can change the color of them, and you can change their intensity, and you can have them go on and off. So we need to use all these things to make the best kind of lighting available. I've been talking about human beings here, but as you can guess, everything, I mean, we're just in one web anyway, and we all know that. And so it has effects as well on wildlife. No surprise, right? Somebody did a survey, 600 million migratory birds here, I still can't believe this, are flying into skyscrapers across the world, often at night, because they see the light and they are confused by it and they head for it. They crash, and then they crash into a building. And we do have evidence of this. This is a picture taken in Toronto. 1 million birds, pardon me, are killed each year flying into buildings, many at night. Habitat loss. Do you live where there are frogs? If you do, frogs need darkness in order to mate, for all of those rituals and things to happen, for the male to sing. And in brightly lit areas, male frogs, the number of calls decrease, and sometimes the frogs will stop calling. So you can damage frog habitat by overlighting in a community. And that would really hurt my heart, because one of my very favorite things where we live is to listen to the frogs when they first come back at the end of April and in May. I just love it. We need this wildness, right? It makes us wild inside. It keeps us alive. So anything we can do to preserve these things that we once took for granted, but which we can't anymore, anything we can do is important. I think about firefly habitat. In my yard, I don't have any lights. I have plenty of fireflies, but remember that mercury vapor light, that yard? There were hardly any fireflies there. And so that I tried to use that to convince my neighbor, but as I told you, it did not work. But that doesn't mean it won't work with another neighbor, or it's something that you might be able to use too. Many people think, well, what's the problem with LEDs? I thought they were really good for the environment. Well, yes, but there's just something about being human. We're all kind of crazy. Sure, the LEDs are great. They're cheap. They burn less energy. We don't have to have as much coal or whatever it is. On the other hand, because it's cheap, cities, neighborhoods, developments use more of it. And so really, in a sense, they cancel the benefit and they waste that energy without thinking about it. And I don't like to accuse people, because often what happens is that they simply don't know that light pollution is an issue. They're like, I never thought the sky and my lights were connected. And that's what I try to do, and I hope you would try to do too. But we're at risk of losing that connection. In fact, 80% of people in North America cannot see the Milky Way right now. They can't walk out of their house and see a dark sky, dark enough to see the Milky Way. 80%. I don't think they know what they're missing. What's gone? They only know what they're missing, perhaps, when they take a trip to a place like the Boundary Waters and the sun sets and it gets dark and they go, oh my God. There's no reason to have to go all the way to the Boundary Waters for the oh my God experience. Why not have that closer to home? It is possible. White, blue LED lights affect melatonin levels, which interferes with your sleep. And there's also changes in habitat and behavior with a great variety of animals as well. And there are far more effects that I'm not even going into. I'm just kind of giving you a basic summary of what happens. So how about a little bit of good news here too at the same time? Remember this photo showed Superior Street back in 2017? The local Starry Skies group worked with Minnesota Power in the city and had some input on what type of lighting should be installed on Superior Street. And it came to fruition. And I hope you've been down and have noticed the difference. If not, I've got a photo for you. Look at the difference between let's go back. That's how it was walking down. Glare for the drivers, light for the sky, lit buildings that did not need to be illuminated. Now, the city has used the yellow, warmer temperature LEDs, 2700K, not the 5000s. They are shielded in a special way so that they don't shine on the buildings, and all of the light falls down on the street. This is beautiful. It's almost like Oz. It's better than Oz. It's it's a solution to basically a simple problem, but one which a lot of education is needed to understand, to make those connections. There are communities that are built and apartment complexes, let's say, housing developments that are dark sky friendly. They're made deliberately with that decision. And if something's going up in your neighborhood, you may want to attend the meeting and say, you know, I think this is really great for our neighborhood. What are you doing about dark sky friendly lighting? Just be open and honest about it. And they're like, what, dark sky friendly? Say, yeah, we like our neighborhood because I can still look up and see the Big Dipper. And I know that there's good lighting out there. And I'd like to have some input on that. Just jump in and do it. Otherwise, I'm afraid you and I are going to have to drive not just 15 or 20 miles like we do now to find a dark sky, if you happen to live near Superior or Duluth or Ashland, but maybe 50, or in the future, 100. Our kids and grandkids, how far will they have to drive? Or will they even bother? Will the night sky just be a thing that they read about in a book? How horrible would that be? We'd lose sights like the Milky Way. Unusual events, beautiful things that come along just once in a while, like a bright comet, as it did a couple of years ago, Comet Neowise. Maybe some of you saw that. Or our identity here in the northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, the Northern Lights. What a thing to have to lose the Northern Lights at the expense of what? Outdoor lighting, a third of which goes straight up. Not worth it at all. Here's the local group in Duluth Superior called Starry Skies North, IDA. And IDA stands for International Dark Sky Association. That's their website. You can go to the website, contact them, tell them you're interested, you'd like to help in some way. You can also find excellent resources at the International Dark Sky Association website, which is at www.darksky.org. You can see the address there. Take a picture with your phone if you like. And here you'll find all kinds of good material that you can use to talk with your friends, or ideas for potential lighting ordinance for the city in which you live. Really great resources are here. You'll learn a lot more about light pollution. Another fun thing to do, and this is really a blast because you may not be familiar with just how dark or bright your sky is, but the site called Globe at Night has a wonderful project that you can get involved in, where you go out, they give you a map, and you look up at the night sky and determine what is the faintest star you can see using their little magnitude chart, as it's called. Astronomers describe the brightness of stars using magnitude. So a bright star is first magnitude and a faint star would be sixth magnitude. And they put all this data together and they get a sense of what's happening to your sky. Are changes happening that are good, bad? What can you do to improve? And all it takes is you looking up, and you'll become much more familiar with your own sky by participating in this project. Current campaign, I'm so happy to see this, but the current campaign starts on the 24th of January, and it's featuring my favorite constellation, Orion. So, and that one's easy to find. Orion's the one with the 3 stars in a row that form his belt. So let's look at what we could do in wrapping up here. We can reduce home lighting, first of all. Turn off unnecessary lights. Keep the drapes closed. Use a motion sensing light. Okay. Complain. Hey, who doesn't like complaining once in a while? Let city officials or township or whatever know that you're upset with overlighting and poor lighting, and ask if there's something they can do, or offer your help to them for suggestions. You can also take action, call your city councilor or mayor, offer to help with better lighting and so forth, and then get support, of course. You could do that through the local group or through the IDA, International Dark Sky Association, and so forth. I honestly believe that by making these good choices, we might still keep both worlds. I have to say the news isn't great on the ground here, or from the satellite point of view, actually. The Earth is gradually getting brighter from light pollution, but because the solutions to this problem are so straightforward, I do honestly believe there is hope that we can keep both worlds. We can have the light we need to see and find our way around safely. At the same time, we can keep that sky dark. So you can go out there and commune and enjoy and be inspired. And so with that, I'm open to any questions that you might have. Thank you very much for listening in tonight. And if there was anything that was unclear, I'd be happy to go into more depth or explain.
Bob, do you see that there is one question for you in the chat about the hospitals?
Yeah, actually, I see there are two. First, I'll do the remote sensing projects. They use satellites to determine what's happening on the ground. However, by using that globe at night site, you can get a sense of what's happening up there. And I just have this here. You can also buy, I finally just bought one of these myself. This is a dark sky meter. And it's a very sensitive light meter, and you can point it straight up at the sky and it will give you a number. And that number will tell you how dark your sky is. And then it provides a baseline for you to determine how your sky is changing. Is it getting darker, lighter? What causes it to get darker and brighter? So that's a helpful device as well. As far as is the Starry Sky Group working with the hospitals to get them to control their lighting, the construction lights. Yeah, construction lights, I think, of course, they're temporary. And I can't answer the question. I apologize. I don't know if they are working on that specific project right now. I do know that the glass on the hospital windows is fritted glass, which is to dissuade birds from striking the building. And I know that will work or should work in the daytime, but I still think we don't know exactly what's going to happen at night with that tall building and many, many rooms lit by interior lights. Thank you for your, thanks, Rich. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and if any, I'm also open. I'm just one human here. I'm open to if anybody else has had a chance to talk with neighbors or had difficulty with neighbors, any story they'd like to share. I can tell you that I have learned the main thing in speaking with your neighbor is to have no expectations, to have the only emotion should be one of passion for your cause, is to tell them why you think darkness is a good thing and explain to them why it's important. It's also any opportunity to talk with your neighbor, assuming they'll do nothing, is an opportunity for them to learn about what good lighting is. Something may lodge back in their heads and they may give it a thought and change their mind. So I think it's always good, and it doesn't have to be confrontational. It's just, hey, but I know it takes a little bit of courage to do so. And just, I would say, not have any expectations, but get the word out. And when doing so, you may have some success with someone here and maybe not someone there. Things move slowly sometimes, as we know. And I'll just wait for a moment in case there are any other questions. Let's see, here's something else. And thank you for your kind words, folks, that you put in the chat box. Putting up foundations for what's new lighting. I emailed the owner. Oh, great, Stephanie. That's good. I would get, you know what? I'd probably get a phone number and email them again too, just to make sure that they did get your message. What business is it? Would you share that with us?
It's Westco, that new
Oh.
solar one on Jean Duluth.
Hmm.
I think that's what Stephanie you're talking about.
Oh, Westco.
Yeah,
Oh, so they're, okay. Isn't that a call center? Is that what it is?
isn't it electric? They're the ones with the solar panels. They install solar. It used to
Oh.
be the landscape place. Is that what you're talking about, Stephanie? I believe.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
the
well,
foundation.
that's really, I mean, I live pretty close to there actually, so
Yep.
I'm gonna put them, I'm gonna put them on my list, Stephanie and Molly. That's great. Thank you for bringing that up. I mean, obviously, the more people who notice this, the owners of these places are kind of get it after a while, like, oh, people are complaining about this, or they're concerned about it. Thing is, so many people do, or should say, can relate through taking their kids camping, enjoying a dark sky, seeing the northern lights. That is relatable material you can share with people and help them to understand the connection between lighting and bad lighting and the sky. Let's see what else do we have any other questions here? Yes, there have been efforts, Rich, with the Duluth Planning Department about dark sky lighting over the years, over the last 10 years, actually. And they've been pretty open to it. I don't know lately in the era here of COVID, what's been going on, to be honest with you. I've been sort of barricaded in the house, but the planning department's an excellent place to bring up lighting concerns. As is, if you're in Duluth, again, to talk to your counselor, or to be aware of what sort of new developments are coming through the area through news that you might get. Maybe if all three of us write her a call. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Kathy, for using dark sky compliant exterior lighting. Really, we've heard it so many times before, it begins with the individual. So to me, you're heroic. I appreciate it very much. That tiny bit. That's what I try to explain to my neighbors. I say, there's that little bit, doesn't seem like much, but if 75 people did it, there would be a noticeable improvement in the sky where I live. What time is my programming? It's every Tuesday, starting at, it's about 8:20 every other Tuesday. The next time that I'll be talking with Chris on the North will be on, pardon me, I'm looking at a calendar, will be on January 25th, so next Tuesday. There are engineering standards in Duluth, and Minnesota Power works with the city to make sure that it has the appropriate amount of lighting. Again, they're using the right kinds of light. It would just be nice for our city to up the ante and to shield those lights. So they've made one very big step by using the right color of LED lighting, and they've made a really big step in downtown improvements. And those are successes whenever you talk with anyone that you could point to. And I totally agree about automobile lights getting brighter. And you know why that is? It's because, well, many people drive trucks. And unfortunately, truck manufacturers are not lowering those lights. Instead, the lights are rising with the elevation of the truck, which puts it more directly in your vision. Also, they're using LED lights, which are much more concentrated, I've noticed, and considerably brighter. And the show, again, it's just a morning interview. That'll be on the 25th, starting at 8:20. We usually talk about cool stuff you could see in the night sky. And wooden warm lights work on vehicles too. Yes, well, they have. Incandescent bulbs have been on standards. And when I see a car still with incandescent bulbs, oh, what a relief. I'm not blinded by that type of light, right? You've had the experience too. Yes, of course they would work, but who's going to use them? That's old technology. It's also wasteful technology, right? Because it's in LED light, they're so much more efficient than incandescent. I think incandescent is like 10% efficiency. You put electricity in, about 10% of it actually does the job. The rest heats up the bulb. LED is much higher percentage, but it escapes me exactly what it is right now. But that's why they're cheaper to operate. Judy says, you moved into, yes, you've been frustrated with the neighbors and their all-night lighting. Judy, that's a fantastic point about the letter or a way to talk with the neighbors. Yes, on the Dark Sky site, the IDA site that I showed you, if you scroll down in there and click, you will look for letters to a neighbor, sky pollution, or you can just do a search for letter to neighbor light pollution. And the IDA site actually has a sample letter, and it's really well worded about how to talk to your neighbor. So that could be helpful. I would, the main thing is, and we all know how it is with our neighbors, is just, you know, part of us wants to be accusing someone. I do this too. You know, I was like, oh, you're kind of emotionally tied up. But I think just a free and easy conversation about what you like and ask them to turn the light a different direction. Would it be possible for you to turn it off starting at this hour? That would be most helpful, because this is when I'd like to look at the night sky and share it with my friends. And just be honest with them, and no guaranteed results, obviously, but if you're sincere and you're yourself, I think that helps. Let me see this. As we get older, the glare is definitely more difficult to deal with. Absolutely concur. And that's a physical change too within the eye. Older people do take more time to readjust compared to a younger person. But what about hockey lights? Oh, when we started, they actually do have shielded stadium lighting. It's not like, well, we have to throw out the book, you know, that there's nothing that can be done. That is not true. You can, a university, for instance, UMD is a good example, or East High School with their stadium, shielded lights are available. It really is a matter of us speaking up and getting enough people to speak up about these things and say, here, this is the option. Were you aware if this is an option? Do you know that it disturbs our neighborhood at night? And talk to your neighbors. Maybe you can have several of you in that case. Well, thank you, Rich. That's a very kind thing to say about the graphics. Yeah, I enjoy making graphics. They're kind of homemade, I'll be honest with you, but if they work, great. Mike Casey asked about getting access to the recording of this, and I'm sure Molly and Julie will be able to help you with. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Molly. And are there any other questions or comments people want to put in that I can hopefully
there
help?
was a question a little further back about your blog. Stephanie was good enough to put in your website link, but there was a question about putting your blog link in because people enjoy reading that and find that a great resource.
Oh, yeah. That's very nice. Thanks, Stephanie, for doing that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoy writing the blog because you can just talk about all the wonderful things in the sky. And I think the more people, that's sort of where it starts. I mean, not necessarily that you have to know a lot about the sky to appreciate it, right? You can just love it the way you might walk along Park Point and just love the way the air feels and the sand and the frozen waves and all of that. You could love that without knowing a lot. But the more you know about the sky, the more treasures and riches that you become aware of up there, I think the more passionately you'll speak and defend it, you know, and come to its aid. So a little knowledge helps. And so that's really what the blog is about. It's just like, hey, go outside. It's up there. Hey, it's still reasonably dark in Duluth, so go outside and enjoy.
Bob, are there any things we can be looking for outside in the next week or so? It's going to be cold, but some of us may bundle up and go out and take a look.
Yeah, I know it's tough in the winter. I hang out with amateur astronomers too, and even amateur astronomers, there's some that just say they hang it up for the winter. They'll look up at the sky, but they won't bring their telescope out because it's kind of a chilling experience. But in the next week or so, the moon is out of the sky in the next week. So that's nice because you can take a trip to the countryside and see the winter Milky Way. And the winter Milky Way, once you get out there to a dark place, and I just go to a dark road, right? A dirt road or someplace like that, or a gravel pit, someplace where you can pull off. Once you get out, and it's I would go after 9 o'clock, wait till Orion is out. So you can see those 3 belt stars. From a dark sky, you'll see the Milky Way coming down like this big smoky sash to the left of Orion, from the top of the sky all the way to the left of Orion and down to the horizon, past this brilliant star called Sirius. And Sirius, which you can also find by just shooting a line through the belt of Orion down towards the horizon. It points right at it. Sirius is the craziest, most twinkliest star in the entire sky because it's the brightest star, and it can really twinkle like crazy. So you can look at that, and on some nights, it doesn't just dance around and twinkle, but it twinkles in every color of the spectrum. So the winter Milky Way, look at Sirius. If it's a twinkle time, that's perfect. Bring binoculars. That really enhances the color of the twinkles. And other than that, it's kind of a quiet time in the sky right now. We've lost some planets. Jupiter is still visible in the southwest during twilight and at the start of the night. So you can see that planet. And then if you're an early riser, you like to go cross-country skiing just before dawn, where you can look out. Not many people do that. Look out to the east. Low in the east, right over Lake Superior, you're going to see a really bright star that's come back into the sky. That's Venus. Venus used to be in the southwest all fall and into the early winter. It flipped over to the other side of the sun, and it's now in the eastern sky. So I would say those 3 things. Sorry, it's a little bit of a long answer, but those are some of the things you can see. Thanks, Stephanie. Is there anything else? I don't do horoscopes. It's the only thing I don't do around here related to astronomy.
Any other questions for Bob? There was a question earlier in the chat, Bob. I don't know if you saw it. It was about whether the asteroid you were going to look at was headed our way.
Yeah, that's why I got to get out right now and see it, because I want to see it before we're all obliterated. No, it's the good news is that it's like tonight, it's like over 1 million miles from the Earth, which speaking in asteroid language is actually, I mean, it's pretty close, just 1 million miles, but it is very safely missing the planet. And astronomers have looked into their crystal ball at the orbits of many, many, many asteroids, and there's not a single one that they've yet identified that they know for sure even has a reasonable chance of striking the Earth in the next couple hundred years. So of all the ones we know about, and there's a lot of them, so far, they're all at a safe distance and will remain so. The ones that could really do us damage, believe it or not, ones that are like 50 to 70 feet wide, which you would think is pretty big and could really do some damage, most of those are broken apart when they enter the atmosphere, and they rain down as small stones, primarily in the ocean and in uninhabited areas. So it's rather uncommon, even for a small rock from space like that, to land over an area where people will see it. But that does happen. But again, no danger, very, very little danger of something like that. That's too small. Good question, though. So I'll look at this little asteroid, which has the name 1994 PC1, and then I'm going to get right back in the house and warm up. Anything else? It's fun just talking with people and answering questions. So if
I just want to throw in, if you're Duluthian and you haven't been to taken Bob's community ed class, it's fabulous at UMD at the planetarium. Now he was just saying they're not sure what'll happen. Supposed to be one starting in February, right, Bob?
right, yeah,
Oh
February.
my gosh, I've taken it many times.
You've suffered so long.
Oh no, it's great.
No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, we do it, and I'll probably have classes again in the spring too, in case this fills up. So, because the class is considerably smaller because of COVID restrictions. So, well, I wish everybody well. I wish you luck in in doing your own thing with lighting, in speaking up at some point, talking to your neighbor. Any little bit really helps to. Again, it's primarily education for people to make that connection.
Well, thank you, Bob. On that note, I think we'll give people want to give a round of applause, either audially or with your little hand signals. But that was a really wonderful, interesting talk. As I said, we have been recording this, and Molly and I will work together to get a link to it up on Sugarloaf's website and also on the Ike's website. While Bob was talking, I did put links to the meetings that I mentioned into the chat. And Molly, do you have any announcements or anything you would like to wrap up with?
Nope, I'm just glad everybody could attend tonight. Enjoy the sky.
And I wanted to thank, I still see some comments, if I could jump in, Julia. Thank you, Rebecca.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Rebecca, for your comment. That's very kind. And it really has been a joy for me. So I appreciate everybody taking time out tonight to listen. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Bob. Stay warm out there.
I'll do my best. I've got my hand warmers.
And
Do you
everyone,
have the blog, your blog information? Debbie just asked about the address for your blog.
It's easy to just type in two
Astro Bob.
words. Just type in 2 words, Astro Bob, and
Okay.
that'll get you there. Yeah.
Thanks.
I also do articles for those folks interested who have a telescope, a little more deeper articles. I do for Sky and Telescope, and you could just type in Sky and Telescope and it'll take you to their website. And I write for them an observing column. Sometimes it's naked eye, sometimes binoculars, and sometimes telescope. So just should be a quick Google search. Let's see though. I will put it up though, because it doesn't seem fair. Because it's just too easy to put it. So after saying all that, oh, hold on, that's not right. We're missing a letter there. Just type that in, and that'll take you there.
did you hit return, Bob? I don't think we see it.
Yeah.
I think I did. Yeah, I did hit it, and it looks. Oh wait, I'm sorry. It didn't go to everyone. My apologies. It just went to Tom McCann. Now it's to everyone.
There we go. Thank you.
We're all good.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks again, Bob. Thanks everyone for joining us, and stay warm and safe out there.
All right. Thank you. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Bob.
Good
Keep
night,
looking up.
everybody.
Thanks all.